Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. Sophie Bennett was wiping down the mahogany table with a damp cloth, humming quietly along to a tune playing in her headphones. The mansion was empty, or at least she thought it was, as it usually was on Tuesdays when her boss was away on business trips. The landline on the executive desk rang insistently, breaking Sophie's focus. She stopped, looked around, and sighed. Normally, it wasn't her job to answer the phone, but the ringing was starting to bother her. What now? If I don't answer, it could be something important, she thought, biting her lower lip. After the 15th ring, Sophie decided she couldn't take it anymore. She pulled off her rubber gloves and picked up the phone. Carter Residence, good morning, she said, trying to sound professional, just like she'd heard others do before. A strong male voice responded on the other end. Hello, I'd like to speak with Mr. Ethan Carter, the man said in Arabic. Sophie's heart started to race. He was speaking Arabic. Without thinking twice, she replied in the same language, Mr. Ethan is not available at the moment. May I help you? The man on the other end sounded surprised. You speak Arabic perfectly. Yes, I'm Khalid Al-Mansouri from Dubai. I have an important business proposal for Mr. Ethan. At that moment, without Sophie realizing, Ethan Carter had returned home earlier than usual. He stopped in the hallway as he heard a woman's voice coming from his office. He walked quietly toward the door and froze. His cleaning lady was speaking Arabic, and not just a few basic words. She was speaking fluently, with perfect accent and expressions that even he, a university-trained speaker, didn't recognize. Ethan stood behind Sophie, completely fascinated. The woman who had been cleaning his house for months, always responding with short answers and keeping her eyes down, was now showing an incredible language skill. Sophie kept talking, unaware her boss was behind her. Mr. Khalid, I'll make sure Mr. Ethan gets your message. When would you like him to return your call? Today, if possible. It's urgent. It's about a $50 million project. Sophie's eyes widened, and Ethan's did too. 50 million, his mind raced. Khalid Al-Mansouri. That name sounded familiar. Yes, the Arab investor he had been trying to make a deal with for weeks. Sophie quickly wrote down the investor's number on a piece of paper she found on the desk. Understood, Mr. Khalid. I'll make sure, Mr. Ethan gets your message as soon as he's back. Ethan watched Sophie closely. Her gestures were graceful, even in her simple uniform. Her Arabic had a natural flow. It wasn't just learned, it was mastered. After a few polite minutes chatting about the weather in Miami compared to Dubai, Sophie finally hung up the phone. She turned the chair to stand up, and oh, she gasped, startled to see Ethan standing behind her. She nearly dropped the phone and stood up quickly, accidentally knocking the note to the floor. Her face turned bright red. Mr. Ethan, I didn't know you were home, Sophie stammered, bending to pick up the paper. Ethan stood still, looking at her with an unreadable expression. His eyes scanned her from head to toe, as if seeing her for the first time. Sophie, you speak Arabic. The question slipped out before he could stop himself. I only answered because the phone kept ringing. I'm sorry if I did something wrong, but I thought it might be important. Sophie spoke quickly, trying to explain. No, Ethan said, raising his hand. The question is, how long have you spoken Arabic so well? Sophie lowered her eyes, her hands trembling slightly. It's just the basics, sir. Ethan frowned. Basics? What he just heard was far from basic. She had spoken about business with ease, used technical terms, and even made polite little jokes about the weather, something that required deep cultural understanding. Who was calling? He asked, testing her. A man named Khalid Al-Mansouri from Dubai. He said he had an urgent proposal about a $50 million project. Each word from Sophie only added to Ethan's surprise. She had understood and remembered all the important details from the call, and most impressive of all, she didn't seem to be lying about only knowing the basics. Is he going to call back? Ethan asked, picking up the note from the floor. Yes, sir. I told him you would return the call as soon as you arrived. Ethan looked at the clock. It was almost noon. He had cancelled his morning meeting at the last minute and arrived earlier than usual. If he hadn't done that, he would have missed the call and never discovered this hidden talent of Sophie's. "Sophie, how long have you worked here?" 8 months, sir. "And at no point did you mention that you speak Arabic?" Sophie lowered her eyes again. "I didn't think it was relevant to my job here, sir." Ethan was quiet for a moment. How had he been so blind for 8 months? Sophie had cleaned his house, made his snacks when he worked late, and he had never really spoken to her. To him, she was just the cleaning lady. But now, "Can you tell me exactly what Mr. Khalid said?" Sophie looked up, surprised by the question. "He said he has an urgent investment proposal for a new hotel complex in Dubai. He mentioned partnerships with European construction companies and said the project might expand to other Arab countries. He also said he was impressed with your business vision and wanted to discuss the details in person." Ethan was speechless. Sophie had understood and remembered much more than he expected from a foreign language business call. "Sophie, we need to talk." Sophie's heart skipped a beat. Was she in trouble? Was she going to be fired for daring to answer her boss's phone? "Yes, sir," she replied in a quiet voice, bracing herself for the worst. Ethan looked at her again, now noticing details he never had before, her intelligent eyes, her confident posture even when nervous, and above all, the language skill he had just witnessed. "But first, I need to return that important call you saved." Sophie simply nodded, still unsure of what would happen next. She had only tried to help, but now she felt like she might have crossed a line she shouldn't have. What Sophie didn't know was that the call in Arabic would change her life forever. Sophie stood near the office door, unsure whether she should leave or stay. Ethan had asked her to wait while he returned the important call she had answered. Her hands were still slightly shaking, and she couldn't stop wondering if she had made a serious mistake. Ethan sat in his executive chair and picked up the phone with purpose. He dialed the number Sophie had written down and waited. Within seconds, a familiar voice answered in Arabic. "Hello, this is Khalid Al-Mansouri." Ethan took a deep breath and answered in Arabic as well. "Mr. Khalid, this is Ethan Carter. I received your call and heard you have an important proposal for me." Sophie's eyes widened as she heard Ethan speaking Arabic. He spoke well, but she noticed a few hesitations and pronunciation errors, understandable for someone who had learned the language in school. "Mr. Ethan, it's great to hear your voice. I must congratulate you on having such a qualified team. Your assistant was extremely professional and attentive." Ethan glanced quickly at Sophie, who looked like she was trying to melt into the wall. "Thank you very much. She's talented." "Absolutely. It's rare to find Americans who speak Arabic with such fluency and cultural understanding. She must have studied in the region, right?" Ethan swallowed hard. He himself didn't know where Sophie had learned those skills. "Yes, we have a very international team." "Perfect. That's exactly why I'd like to suggest she join our meeting tomorrow. It's crucial to have someone who understands the cultural nuances for this project." Ethan's eyes widened. He looked at Sophie again, who was trying to guess the conversation based on his tone and facial expressions. "The meeting tomorrow with Sophie?" "Yes, if she's available. The project is complex and involves very specific terms. Her fluency would be extremely valuable." Ethan covered the phone for a moment and whispered to Sophie. "He wants you to attend the meeting tomorrow as my assistant." Sophie nearly fell over. "What? Me?" she whispered back, pointing at herself. "Yes, you," Ethan replied, just as surprised. He got back on the phone. "Mr. Khalid, we'll be there. What time should we meet?" "Excellent. 3 o'clock at my office in downtown Miami. I'll be bringing my team from Dubai and some local investors." "Perfect. We'll be there." After a few more minutes discussing the meeting details, Ethan hung up and stared at Sophie in complete silence. The room was thick with tension. Sophie didn't know whether she should speak or keep waiting. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "Sophie, we need to have a serious talk. I know I answered the phone without permission, sir, but it kept ringing for so long, and I thought, this isn't about you picking up the phone," Ethan interrupted, standing up from his chair. He started pacing the office, running a hand through his blonde hair, clearly deep in thought. "Sophie, You just saved one of the biggest deals of my career. Khalid had been avoiding me for weeks because I couldn't communicate well in Arabic. Today, not only did he return my call, but he also offered me an even bigger project. Sophie blinked, confused. I'm sorry, sir, I don't understand. Mr. Khalid said your assistant was exceptional. He assumed you're my executive assistant and was so impressed, he insisted you be at the meeting tomorrow. But, sir, I'm just the cleaning lady. Ethan stopped and looked straight at Sophie. That's what I don't get. How did you learn Arabic so well, and don't tell me it's just the basics? What I heard was native fluency. Sophie swallowed hard. That was a question she'd been avoiding for a long time. I studied it in college. What college? University of Miami. What did you study? Sophie hesitated. The truth always felt like a lie in this kind of environment. Linguistics. I graduated in applied linguistics with a focus on Middle Eastern languages. Ethan froze. You have a degree in linguistics? Then why are you working as a cleaner? Because no one hires me for anything else, sir, Sophie said, her voice carrying clear pain. What do you mean no one hires you? Sophie fought back the tears that were starting to well up. I've been to dozens of interviews. Everyone's impressed on paper, but when they see me in person, there's always someone more suitable for the company profile. Ethan frowned, trying to understand. More suitable? I don't get it. I'm a woman, Latina, and apparently I don't have the right look for international business, Sophie said bitterly. The silence that followed was heavy. Ethan looked like he was processing a truth he'd never considered before. Sophie, how many languages do you speak? She sighed. 5 fluently. English, Spanish, Arabic, French, and Portuguese, plus some basic Mandarin and German. Ethan's jaw dropped. 5 languages fluently? 6, actually. I forgot English. And you're cleaning houses? I have bills to pay, sir. Ethan sat back down, looking at Sophie like he was seeing a complicated puzzle for the first time. Sophie, I have a proposal for you. You're going to fire me? She asked, bracing herself. Fire you? No? I want you to come with me to the meeting tomorrow. As your cleaner? No. Ethan smiled for the first time. As my temporary language consultant. Sophie blinked a few times. I don't understand. I need this meeting. It's a $50 million contract. You just proved you have exactly the skills I need. Come with me. Help me close this deal, and I promise it'll change your life. Mr. Ethan, I don't have the right clothes for a meeting like that. Leave the clothes to me, Ethan said firmly. Sophie, I underestimated you for 8 months. Will you help me tomorrow? Sophie looked at her hands, still rough from cleaning, then back at Ethan. For the first time in years, someone was offering a real chance to use her abilities. I'll do it, sir. Great. Ethan stood up, excited. And Sophie? Yes, sir? Call me Ethan. Sophie smiled shyly. All right, Ethan. In that moment, neither Sophie nor Ethan could have imagined that this simple business meeting was just the beginning of a transformation that would change both of their lives forever. The next day, Sophie woke up 2 hours earlier than usual. Her stomach was in knots from nerves, and she changed clothes at least 5 times before settling on a simple black dress she bought on clearance years ago for job interviews. At 11 o'clock, her phone rang. Sophie, it's Ethan. I'm sending a driver to pick you up. We're going shopping before the meeting. But, Ethan, I don't have money to. It's on me. I need you to feel confident today. I'll see you in an hour. 40 minutes later, a luxury Uber pulled up in front of Sophie's small apartment. The driver, a middle-aged man in a sharp suit, opened the door for her as if she were an important executive. At the mall, Ethan was waiting for her in front of an upscale boutique. He was wearing designer jeans and a white shirt, looking more casual than usual but still carrying a sense of sophistication. Good morning, Sophie. Did you sleep well? To be honest, I barely slept, she admitted. Ethan laughed. Me neither. This meeting is important to me. Shall we? The boutique was intimidating. Mirrors everywhere, mannequins dressed in clothes that cost more than Sophie's rent, and saleswomen who looked at her like she didn't belong there. What do you have in mind? Ethan asked. I really don't know. I've never shopped at a place like this. Pick whatever you want. I need you to feel powerful today." Sophie gave a nervous smile and started browsing through the clothes. Ethan stood beside her, offering his opinion whenever she showed him something. "This blue would look great with your eyes," he said about a blazer. "You think it's a little bold?" "Sophie, you'll be in a room negotiating millions. A little color won't hurt." After an hour of trying things on, Sophie picked a navy blue outfit with a structured blazer and tailored pants, along with a white satin blouse and a pair of pumps. "Perfect," Ethan approved when she stepped out of the fitting room. "Now for accessories. Ethan, you've already spent so much. Stop worrying about money. Today, you're my partner. Partners need to look successful." While Sophie tried on delicate necklaces and earrings, Ethan watched her closely. There was something different about seeing her outside the domestic setting. Her movements were more confident, and her eyes sparkled more when she truly smiled. "Can I ask you something personal?" Ethan said while they waited at the register. "Sure. Do you have family in Miami? My mom lives in Hialeah. My dad passed away when I was 12. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you. It was tough. He's the one who taught me to love languages." "How so?" Sophie smiled softly. "He was from Puerto Rico but traveled a lot when he was young. He used to say every language was like a key to a new world. He spoke Spanish, English, and a little Italian. He promised that when I grew up, we'd travel the world together." "And you never did?" "No. He died in a car accident 3 months before our first planned trip. I was about to turn 13, and he had promised to take me to Paris." Ethan felt a tightness in his chest. "Sophie, I'm really sorry." "It's okay. That's what pushed me to study languages. Every time I learn a new one, I feel like I'm keeping the promise we made." "How many have you learned so far?" 7, if you count the basics." "That's amazing." Sophie shrugged. "Doesn't help much if you're stuck cleaning houses." The saleswoman handed her the shopping bag, and they left the store. In the car, on the way to Ethan's office, Sophie looked visibly tense. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "Me too." "Really?" "Of course. This is the biggest deal I've ever tried to close. If it doesn't work out, it'll be my fault." Ethan looked at her, surprised. "No. If you speak Arabic better than I do, it means I've got a better shot. You're my secret weapon." Sophie smiled faintly. "But what if I mess it up? Sophie, you've helped me more in the last 24 hours than any consultant I've hired in the past few months. Trust yourself." At the office, Ethan brought Sophie into an empty conference room. "Let's practice a bit. Tell me about some terms that might come up during the meeting." Sophie started explaining construction and investment terms in Arabic while Ethan took notes. With each minute, his admiration for her grew. "How do you remember all this?" "I studied a lot. And when you love something, it's easier." "You love languages that much?" "I love what they represent. Every language has a personality, a culture, a way of seeing the world." Ethan stopped writing and looked at her. "Have you ever thought about teaching or working in embassies?" "I've tried everything, Ethan. No one gives me a real chance." "Well, I'm giving you one." Sophie met his eyes. "Why? Why do you want to help me so much?" Ethan hesitated. It was a question he had been asking himself too. "Because I treated you unfairly. For 8 months, I acted like you were invisible. I never asked your full name, never had a real conversation with you. And I realized I've been missing out on conversations with one of the most fascinating people I've ever met." Sophie felt her cheeks flush. "You don't have to feel guilty. I never really tried to talk either. But that's the problem. It shouldn't have been your responsibility. I should have seen you." "And now you do?" Ethan smiled. "Now I do. And I want to help you show the world who you really are." "Why is that so important to you?" Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Because I know what it's like to be underestimated. When I started my company, everyone thought I'd go bankrupt in 6 months. It took me 3 years to prove them wrong. If someone had just given me a real chance back then, it would have been a lot easier." "And now you want to give that chance to me?" "Yes. But also because—" He hesitated. "Because I have a feeling you might teach me a lot about seeing the world in a different way." Sophie looked at him kindly. "Ethan, Thank you, truly. You're welcome. Now, let's get ready. In 2 hours, we're going to turn your fluency into millions. As they went over technical terms and negotiation strategies, Ethan couldn't help but notice how Sophie changed when she talked about languages. Her eyes lit up, her hands moved expressively, and all her shyness seemed to vanish. You seem different when you talk about this, he said. What do you mean? More confident, like you're someone else. That's because I'm really myself when I'm doing what I love. And when you clean? Sophie gave a bitter laugh. When I clean, I pretend to be someone who accepts that her dreams are just dreams. And now? Now, I'm scared to believe they might not be just dreams after all. Ethan reached out his hand to her. So, shall we turn those dreams into reality? Sophie took his hand. Let's. Khalid Mansouri's office was at the top of a high-rise building in downtown Miami, with a panoramic view of the ocean. Sophie and Ethan were greeted by a perfectly composed receptionist who led them into a spacious meeting room. Mr. Khalid will be with you in 5 minutes, she said. Sophie sat next to Ethan, her hands subtly trembling. He noticed and gently touched her arm. Breathe. You're going to do great. The door opened, and a tall man, around 50, walked in, followed by 3 others. Khalid al-Mansouri had a strong presence and sharp eyes. Ethan, he said warmly in Arabic, embracing him. It's so good to see you in person, and this must be the famous Sophie who saved our communication yesterday. Sophie stood up and responded in fluent Arabic. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Khalid. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this meeting. Khalid gave a broad smile. The pleasure is mine. Your fluency is impressive. Where did you study? At the University of Miami, with a semester abroad in Morocco. Morocco? I love that country. Which city? Marrakesh. It was a life-changing experience. As Sophie and Khalid spoke, Ethan watched, impressed. The ease with which she discussed Morocco's cultural aspects, the historical references she made, the subtle way her facial expressions shifted to match the conversation, all of it showed a level of cultural depth far beyond academic learning. Please, have a seat, Khalid gestured. Let's begin with the project details. Over the next hour, Khalid presented the plans for a chain of luxury hotels expanding from Dubai to Miami, with future plans for other U.S. cities. Sophie translated for Ethan when needed, but she also started asking smart questions about zoning, local partners, and how to adapt the Arab hospitality concept for American audiences. Sophie, those are excellent questions, Khalid said, clearly impressed. Do you have experience in hotel development? Not directly, but during my studies, I analyzed many cases of international expansion and hospitality. The biggest challenge is usually in the cultural details, not just the language. Exactly, Khalid said, hitting the table with enthusiasm. That's why we need a team that understands those subtleties. Ethan, you've got a real gem here. Ethan smiled. Yes, I do. After 2 hours of intense discussion, Khalid leaned back in his chair. Ethan, I'm ready to make a preliminary agreement today, but I have one specific condition. What would that be? I want Sophie to be our cultural consultant throughout the planning phase. She'll need to come to Dubai with us next month to see our operation and then lead the adaptation of our concept for the UN of Resend. S. Market. Sophie nearly fell out of her chair. Ethan looked at her, trying to hide his own surprise. Khalid, I'll need to discuss this with Sophie. It's a big change. Of course. Sophie, what do you think? All eyes in the room turned to her. Sophie took a deep breath. Mr. Khalid, I'm honored by your offer. May I ask about the terms and length of the project? Khalid smiled. You see, Ethan, total professionalism. Sophie. We're talking about a 6-month contract, with the possibility of an extension. The salary would be equivalent to that of a senior international consultant, plus all travel expenses. Ethan noticed Sophie swallow hard when she heard senior international consultant. I need a moment to think. If you don't mind. Of course. Let's take a 15-minute break. Once they were alone in the room, Ethan turned to Sophie right away. This is amazing. This is exactly the chance you've been waiting for. Ethan, I can't accept it. Why not? Because I still work for you as a cleaning lady. Ethan paused for a moment and then said, Sophie, I need to tell you something. When I got home yesterday, I was coming back early because I had decided to give the whole house staff 2 weeks off. I was thinking of upgrading the cleaning systems at home. You were going to fire me. Not fire, just give you all a break. But now, he laughed. Now I see the universe had other plans. Sophie looked at him, torn. This opportunity is amazing, but I feel like I'm betraying you somehow. Ethan took her hands. Sophie, you don't owe me anything. I'm the one who owes you. For 8 months, I wasted your talent. Now I have the chance to help you reach your dreams. Please say yes. And what about you? The meeting? I won't be able to help with the contract. You already helped me. Khalid is impressed, and I've learned more in these past 2 hours than in the last few months of trying. I'll manage. Sophie felt tears in her eyes. Ethan, I don't know how to thank you. Easy. Accept the offer. Go to Dubai, take on the world, and then send me a postcard. That's all. Ethan smiled, though something else showed in his eyes. For now, that's what matters. Are you ready to say yes? When they returned to the meeting, Sophie formally accepted Khalid's offer. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of draft contracts, scheduled talks, and exchanging information. In the end, Khalid said his goodbyes with warm hugs. Ethan, it's been a pleasure doing business with you. Sophie, I look forward to having you on the team. See you in 3 weeks in Dubai. As they left the building, the sun was setting over Miami. Sophie and Ethan walked in silence to the car. Did that really just happen? Sophie asked. It did. I'm going to Dubai. You're going to Dubai. Sophie stopped walking and turned to Ethan. I don't know what to say. I feel like my whole life changed in 24 hours. How do you feel? Scared, excited, grateful. I still can't believe someone actually saw me for who I am. Ethan looked at her closely. Sophie, I see you, truly. For a moment, something passed between them. Sophie felt her heart race, and Ethan seemed like he was about to say more. But then he stepped back. Want to celebrate? I know a place that makes the best mojito in Miami. Okay, Sophie agreed, trying to ignore the sting of disappointment. At the bar, over drinks and small plates, they talked about Sophie's travel plans, but also about other things. Music, movies, and dreams they had both kept hidden. Can I admit something? Sophie said, slightly tipsy from the mojito. Of course. I had a crush on you for months. Ethan froze with his glass halfway up. Really? Yes, she laughed, a little embarrassed, like a silly worker falling for the boss. But getting to know you for real is even better. Better, huh? You're more human than I thought, kinder, more real. Ethan smiled shyly. Can I admit something too? Go ahead. In the last 2 days, I've learned more about empathy and missed chances than I have in the past 2 years. Is that good or bad? It's scary, but good. They looked at each other across the table, and again, there was that moment. But then Ethan checked his watch. I should take you home. You've got a lot to prepare tomorrow. In the car, Sophie leaned her head against the window. Ethan, thank you for everything. Stop thanking me. Are you going to miss me? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Yes, I'll miss you. Even though I was just your cleaning lady? Sophie, you were never just anything to me. I just didn't know it before. When they reached her apartment, Sophie stepped out of the car and turned to say goodbye. Without thinking, she leaned in and hugged him. Thank you for seeing me, she whispered. Ethan hugged her back, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling like something in his life had just clicked into place. Sophie? Yes? Will you text me when you get to Dubai? I promise. She went inside, and Ethan stayed there for a few minutes, staring at the modest building where she lived. He had the feeling he was letting something important slip away. 3 weeks flew by. Sophie spent her days getting ready, renewing her passport, shopping for appropriate clothes for Dubai, and studying Khalid's hotel group projects. Ethan helped when he could, but kept a respectful distance that left her confused. The night before the trip, Sophie was finishing up her packing when her phone rang. "Ethan, hey, how's everything coming along? Almost done. I can't believe I'm flying to Dubai tomorrow. It's going to be amazing." "You're going to do great." "Ethan, can we talk in person before I leave?" There was a pause. "Of course. How about now? I can come over." Sophie looked around her small apartment, suddenly aware of the contrast between where she lived and Ethan's mansion. "Can we meet somewhere? There's a cafe on the corner that stays open late." 20 minutes later, they were sitting at a corner table in the little cafe. Sophie had something on her mind and knew she had to say it before she lost her nerve. "Ethan, I need to tell you something important." "I'm listening." I feel like there's something left unsaid between us, and if I don't say it now, I'll regret it." Ethan looked at her closely. "Sophie, no. Let me go first. These past few days, every time we get close to having a real moment, one of us pulls away. I don't want to go to Dubai with all these things left hanging." "What do you mean?" Sophie took a deep breath. "There's something between us. I know it, but you're holding back." "Ethan, I am." "Why?" "Because you're about to start an incredible career. This opportunity could take you places you've never imagined. If I say how I feel, it might look like I'm trying to hold you back or sway your decision." "And how do you feel?" Ethan looked down at his hands. "That you're the most amazing person I've met in a long time. That in the past few days, I've come to admire not just your intelligence, but your courage, your determination, your ability to dream even after being let down so many times." Sophie felt tears in her eyes. "But you deserve to explore every opportunity without worrying about what you're leaving behind. You should be able to fully experience this." "And what if I don't want to leave anything behind?" "Sophie, Ethan, listen. I spent months seeing you come and go from the house, building up this image in my mind of who you were. Now that I really know you, I don't want to just let that go. It's not about letting go. It's about timing." "What timing? There's no rule book for this." Ethan gave a small, sad laugh. 3 weeks ago, you were cleaning my house. Now you're about to fly to another continent. That's a lot of change in a short time. And what if I want both the career and you?" "How?" Sophie reached for his hand. "By staying in touch, talking every day, seeing where this goes. Dubai is a contract, not a permanent move. And after that, then we talk again. But for now, before I leave, I just need to know, are we worth waiting for?" Ethan laced his fingers through hers. "Of course we are. Then kiss me. Now." Ethan looked around the nearly empty cafe, then back at Sophie. Without hesitating anymore, he leaned in and kissed her gently. It was a sweet kiss, full of hope and possibilities. When they pulled apart, Sophie was smiling. "Now I can go to Dubai with peace of mind." "And you'll come back?" "I always come back from work, Ethan." They laughed, and the tension between them finally melted away. They walked a little while longer, now hand in hand, talking about future plans and how they'd keep in touch. At Sophie's apartment door, Ethan kissed her again. "Safe travels. Go shine over there. Take care of your house while I'm gone. I might have to hire another cleaner," he joked. "Make it temporary. That job's mine when I return. Not if you become a world-famous executive." Sophie turned serious. "Ethan, career success means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with. That's something I've learned over the years. Then I wish you good luck, but not too much, because I want you to come back. I promise." Dubai was everything Sophie had imagined and more. The gleaming towers. The contrast between tradition and modern life. The vibrant energy of a global city. Khalid al-Mansouri was more than generous. She stayed in a suite at the Burj Khalifa with a panoramic view, had a private driver, and access to all the luxury facilities the company offered. But what impressed Sophie the most was how seriously her opinion was taken. In the first few days, she visited 3 of the group's hotels, took part in executive meetings, and delivered a detailed report on cultural adjustments needed for the American market. "Your insights are exceptional," Khalid said after her third presentation. You have a perspective that our local consultants simply don't. Thank you, Mr. Khalid. It's exciting to be able to contribute in a meaningful way. Sophie, you have the potential to go very far. Have you ever thought about doing this full-time? The question caught her by surprise. What do you mean? We're expanding globally. We're looking for someone who understands different cultures to lead our international development division. The position would be based here in Dubai, with frequent travel. Sophie felt her heart race. That's an incredible offer, but I need to finish the current project first. Of course, but please think about it. That night, Sophie was in her luxurious room, looking out at the city lights, when she received a video call from Ethan. "Hi, how's Dubai?" he asked, smiling widely. "It's amazing, but I miss you," she replied honestly. "I miss you too. How are the projects going?" Sophie told him about her day, her discoveries, and finally about Khalid's proposal. "That's an amazing opportunity," Ethan said, though she sensed something in his voice. "You sound concerned." "Not exactly concerned. I'm happy for you, but I just thought you'd be back in a month. This offer would change everything." "Ethan, I haven't accepted it yet." "I know, and you should. It's what you've always wanted." "Is it?" Sophie sighed. "I've always wanted to be recognized for my work, yes, but that kind of recognition feels empty when I don't have you to share it with. Sophie, we've really only known each other for 3 weeks. Don't make career decisions based on me. It's not based on you. It's based on us." "Sophie." "Ethan, think about this with me. What if the offer included Miami as a base? What if I could work remotely part of the time? What if we talked about it when I get back? You'd really consider that?" "I'd try. For us?" Ethan smiled. "Okay, let's talk when you get back. For now, enjoy Dubai." "I promise." The day of the crucial meeting arrived. Sophie was in the main conference room of the most luxurious hotel in Dubai, wearing a navy blue suit Khalid had custom made for her. The fabric had a silky feel, and the color brought out her eyes, giving her a professional and elegant appearance. She had spent the night before studying every detail of the project, practicing possible questions in Arabic, and even memorizing the names and titles of everyone attending. The room had a view of the Burj Khalifa and the Gulf, with a conference table that could easily seat 20. The air was scented with oud, a traditional Arabian fragrance Sophie had come to appreciate. Her briefcase was neatly organized with 3 printed versions of the contract, a gold calculator, and Parker pens Ethan had sent as a good luck gift. Along with Khalid and his team, there were investors from several Arab countries: Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait. The pressure was intense. This $50 million contract would determine not only the future of the Miami project, but also her credibility as an international consultant. Every word had to be perfect. "Gentlemen, allow me to introduce Sophie Bennett, our cultural consultant for the Miami project," Khalid announced with visible pride. Sophie greeted each person at the table in the appropriate language. For the Saudis, she used the formal and respectful, "Peace be upon you, and God's mercy and blessings." For the Emiratis, she took a slightly more relaxed, yet still formal tone. For the Qatari investors, she discovered that 2 were of French origin and greeted them in French, showing her linguistic versatility. Over the next 3 hours, she didn't just translate. When one investor questioned whether certain architectural features would respect Islamic traditions, Sophie gave a detailed analysis of how modern buildings in cities like Dubai and Doha incorporate traditional elements without sacrificing innovation. She drew diagrams on the whiteboard, explaining concepts like mashrabiyya decorative latticework and how they could be adapted to filter Florida's intense sunlight. When a discussion arose about food practices in international hotels, she clarified misunderstandings about halal certification and culturally sensitive options that would appeal to both local and international guests. During every explanation, her eyes lit up with passion, and her hands moved with elegant gestures, painting vivid pictures with her words. A critical moment came when a conservative Saudi investor raised concerns about certain architectural provisions. The tension in the room was tangible. Khalid looked nervously at Sophie, who took a deep breath and stood up. "Sheikh Abdullah, I completely understand your concerns. Allow me to suggest a solution that honors both our sacred traditions and meets international hospitality standards. She spent the next 20 minutes presenting changes that included separate prayer areas oriented precisely toward Mecca, family rooms designed for privacy, and public spaces that respected modesty guidelines, while still maintaining a cosmopolitan elegance. She even suggested bringing in religious consultants to make sure every detail followed appropriate Islamic interpretations. "This is perfect," the Saudi investor said, his serious expression softening. "Finally, someone who understands that modernity doesn't have to mean abandoning values." Other investors nodded, and a few female executives, rare in that setting, smiled in approval. The atmosphere in the room shifted completely. Sophie had handled a culturally sensitive situation with real skill. By the end of the 3-hour meeting, all the documents were signed. Khalid gave Sophie a warm hug and whispered in Portuguese, "You saved this deal. You're a true cultural diplomat." "It was a team effort," she replied modestly. "Everyone played a part in making this happen. Sophie, I need you on our team full-time. I'm ready to triple our previous offer." Sophie's eyes widened. Triple? That would mean a life-changing salary. But she had to think about Ethan, about Miami, about the life they were starting to build together. "Mr. Khalid, I'm truly honored. May I have a few days to think it over? It's a decision that will affect many parts of my life." "Of course, Sophie, it's an important decision. Take all the time you need." After the meeting, Sophie went back to her hotel room. She called Ethan right away, her hands still shaking from the adrenaline. "Ethan, we closed the deal. That's fantastic, Sophie. I'm so proud of you. Tell me everything." Sophie shared all the details, the tense moments, the investors' concerns, and how she had turned things around. Ethan listened closely, asking questions and celebrating each little victory. "And there's more," she continued, her voice a little hesitant. "What is it?" Khalid made another offer, an even better one. Triple the salary, permanent executive position. There was a pause on the other end. Sophie bit her lip, worried about how he'd take it. "Oh, but, Ethan, I haven't accepted yet because I don't know if I want it if it means spending less time with you." "Sophie, love, you can't make career decisions based on me. This is an amazing opportunity. It's only amazing if I get to share it with you. If I don't have you, it's just a job. Who says you won't have me? Sophie, we're building something together. If this means you'll be traveling more, we'll figure it out. Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I love you." And when you love someone, you want them to chase their dreams, even when it's scary, even when it's hard. Sophie started crying, overwhelmed with relief. "Ethan, I love you so much. You always say the right thing. Not always, but with you, I want to get it right. Sophie, yes? I'm so proud of you. It hurts. You're out there conquering the world, and you still chose me to be part of the journey. I didn't choose you to just watch. I chose you to build with me. Then come home, and let's plan our next adventure together." That night, Sophie could hardly sleep. Ethan's words echoed in her mind, along with the challenges of global expansion. Through the hotel window, Dubai sparkled, a testament to what could happen when cultures and ambition work together. At 3 a.m., she sat on the balcony, overlooking the lit-up city, a notepad in her hands, and started writing pros and cons. But at the end of every list, there was only one question: what would Ethan think? And she already knew the answer. He'd think she should follow her heart because their love was strong enough for any distance, any challenge. At 5 a.m., Sophie made her decision. She picked up her phone and messaged Khalid. "I accept the offer, with one condition. We need to find a way for me to keep my base in Miami. Dubai can be my second home, but Miami is where my heart is." Then she messaged Ethan. "I love you, and I accepted the offer. I couldn't have done it without knowing you were behind me. I can't wait to plan our future together." His reply came instantly. "I knew you'd make the right choice for us, for our future. Now come home so I can celebrate this win the way you deserve." Sophie smiled, put her phone away, and watched the sun rise over Dubai. In just a few hours, she'd be flying back to Miami, to Ethan, to home. But now, with a signed contract and a bright future ahead, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. The flight back to Miami was a mix of exhaustion, excitement, and anticipation. Sophie checked her emails on the plane, replying to congratulatory messages from colleagues, but her mind was on Ethan. How would he react when she told him everything in person? How would they navigate this new phase together? Ethan was waiting for her at the airport with a big smile and a bouquet of Middle Eastern flowers, jasmine, and damask roses he had specially ordered. "For my international hero," he said, hugging her tightly. "How did you know these are my favorite flowers from Dubai?" "Because I pay attention to everything about you." In the car, Sophie shared every detail of the meeting she hadn't mentioned on the phone. Ethan listened closely, his hand resting over hers on the center console. "Sophie, the way you described that negotiation, you know you're a natural diplomat, right? I just did what I love, connecting people, building bridges between cultures, and you do it beautifully. But for now, I want you to forget about work for one night. I have something special planned for us." "What kind of plans?" "You'll see." At home, Ethan had prepared an elaborate surprise. The living room was decorated with hanging lights, creating a floating garden atmosphere. A table was set with Lebanese food: hummus, tabbouleh, kibbeh, and fattoush, all dishes Sophie had grown to love during her travels. "Ethan, how did I call that restaurant you always talk about?" I wanted to bring a little of the Middle East home. During dinner, they talked about everything and nothing: dreams, fears, plans. Ethan had put together a playlist that mixed Arabic music with American jazz, creating the perfect background for their evening. "Sophie, can I ask you something important?" "Of course." "How do you see our future with all this international growth, with you traveling more? How do we make this work?" Sophie set down her glass of Lebanese wine and took his hands. "I see adventure. I see challenges. I see hard moments when I'll be on the other side of the world and you'll be here. But I also see you picking me up at airports, business dinners. You insist on joining by video, late-night calls when we're apart. And me? What do you see?" Ethan paused, then began speaking softly. "I see a house full of maps with our destinations marked. I see passports filled with stamps. I see you teaching our future children different languages. I see work meetings in our living room that turn into romantic dinners." Sophie felt her eyes welling up. "Future children?" "Sophie." Ethan stood up, walked to a drawer, and came back holding something. Her heart felt like it might burst. "What are you doing?" Ethan knelt down beside her. "Sophie Bennett, I've spent the last few days thinking about your success, about how you shine when you're doing what you love. And I realized I want to spend the rest of my life watching you shine." He opened a small box, revealing a breathtaking ring. The center stone was a diamond, surrounded by tiny blue sapphires, a design that reflected the color of the ocean she loved to gaze at from her office in Dubai. "This ring has diamonds from 4 continents: South America, Africa, Europe, and Asia. It represents all your past adventures and the ones still ahead." Sophie was crying now. "Ethan, I know you're about to travel more. I know there'll be incredible offers, opportunities, and places we haven't even heard of yet. And I want you to take every one of them. I want to be the person who celebrates every win, who supports you through every challenge, and who always has a home waiting for you." It took a deep breath. "Sophie Bennett, will you marry me? Will you build an empire of love with me, one that crosses borders and brings cultures together? Will you be my partner, my teammate, my best friend, and the love of my life?" "Yes," Sophie almost shouted. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Ethan slipped the ring on her finger with trembling hands. When they kissed, Sophie could taste their tears, his and hers. "I love you so much," she whispered as they pulled apart. "I love you more than words in any language could ever say." The rest of the night was a blur of plans, laughter, and more happy tears. They stayed up until dawn, talking about everything from wedding venues to how many kids they wanted. "Sophie, one more thing," Ethan said in the middle of the night as they lay on the couch. "What is it?" I want you to know I'm ready to move too. If you need a home base in Dubai or London or anywhere, I'll go. You'd really do that? Love, my home is wherever you are. But what about your business here? It can be managed from anywhere. Besides, I think it's time I expanded internationally too. Sophie turned to look at him. Are you serious? We'd be building something together. Why not? 2 empires are better than 1. And just think about the possibilities of combining our networks. Ethan Carter, she said playfully. Are you planning to take over the world with me? No, Sophie. I'm planning to cherish the world with you. The next morning, Sophie woke up with the ring sparkling on her finger and a new sense of wholeness. It wasn't just about career or love. It was about how the two came together to create something bigger. Good morning, fiancé, Ethan whispered, kissing her shoulder. Good morning, future husband. How do you feel? Like I could take on the world. Then let's do it. But first, breakfast. If we're going to plan international empires, we'll need our energy. And so, with engagement rings and world-sized dreams, Sophie and Ethan began planning not just a wedding, but a life of partnership, in love, and in business. 6 months after the meeting that changed their lives, Sophie found herself in a routine she never imagined possible. She was now working as Director of Cultural Expansion for the Khalid Group, but under renegotiated terms that allowed her to be based in Miami with strategic travel. Ethan had started joining her when possible, turning some business trips into spontaneous mini honeymoons. The mansion had changed. Ethan's old office now had 2 executive desks, a world map covering an entire wall, and a collection of travel souvenirs, not just keepsakes but actual work tools. African masks, Persian rugs, and samples of Japanese fabrics. Each piece had a business story behind it. You know what's funny? Sophie said one night as they cooked dinner together in the gourmet kitchen they hardly used before. What? If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be seasoning chicken with Ras El Hanout at home with my fiancé after coming back from meetings on 3 different continents in 1 week, I'd have said they were crazy. Ethan laughed, chopping onions. And if someone had told me I'd meet my future wife because she picked up a phone call meant for me, I'd think it was a movie script. Speaking of which, Sophie pulled out her phone. Khalid sent a message. There's a new proposal. Good or complicated? Good, but big. Sophie showed him the message. Khalid wanted to expand into the Asian market. South Korea specifically. It would be a 6-month operation based in Seoul, with potential to become permanent. What do you think? She asked. What do you want to do, Ethan? I can't make these decisions alone anymore. We have a wedding to plan, and you've got your own projects. Ethan turned off the stove and looked at her. Sophie, look at me. What do you want to do? No other factors. Just you and your dream career. I want to go. Korea is fascinating. The Asian market makes up 1/3 of the international project, and it would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity too. Then let's go. What? Let's go to Seoul together. Ethan, you can't just... Yes, I can. Sophie, when I proposed to you, I committed to your dreams too. If your dreams take us to Korea, then Korea is where we need to be. Sophie dropped her phone and hugged him. You're crazy. I'm in love. Is there a difference? But what about your work? Technology allows me to work remotely. And you know what? I was already thinking about expanding into Asia anyway. 2 birds, 1 stone. 2 weeks later, Sophie was in a virtual meeting with Khalid, with Ethan by her side. So, Sophie, what's your decision about Seoul? I'm in. But Ethan is coming with me. Excellent. Ethan, it's great to have you joining us on this adventure. Actually, Ethan jumped in. I have a proposal for you, Khalid. Sophie looked surprised. They hadn't discussed any joint proposal. I'm listening, Khalid said, intrigued. How about a full business partnership? Carter Mansouri International. Sophie is already doing international cultural development. I have experience in mergers and acquisitions. Together, we could create a company that not only connects cultures but also facilitates global business. Sophie nearly fell out of her chair. Khalid was silent for several seconds. That's an intriguing idea, and unexpected. I'll need to think about it. After the meeting ended, Sophie turned to Ethan. "What did you just do? Something I should have done sooner. I stopped watching you conquer the world from the sidelines and decided to stand beside you." Ethan. "Sophie, I've spent months watching you be amazing from afar. It's time we're amazing together. And what if Khalid says no? Then we start our own company. Bennett Carter International. Or Carter Bennett Global. We'll figure out the name later." Sophie started crying and laughing at the same time. "You really are crazy. I really am yours." 1 month later, they were on a plane to Seoul. Khalid had accepted the partnership offer, but wanted to test them first during the Korean project. Sophie felt nervous and excited, more energized than she had been in months. "Ready for your first official international mission?" she asked Ethan as the plane took off. "Born ready. I was just waiting for you to give me a shot." During the 16-hour flight, they worked on proposals, studied the Korean market, and practiced a few basic Korean phrases. Sophie had to stop Ethan from trying to learn the entire Hangul alphabet in one go. "Honey, you don't need to master the language on one flight, but you pick up things so fast." "Ethan, I've been studying languages for 15 years. You've got 3 days. Let's stick to the basics." "Okay, then teach me how to say, 'My wife is brilliant,' in Korean." "My wife is brilliant," she said, laughing. "Perfect. That's what I'm going to say in every meeting." Seoul welcomed them with a mix of tradition and modern style that impressed even Sophie, who was used to cultural contrasts. The apartment the company had rented, with a view of the Han River, was located in the Gangnam business district. "Ethan, look at this," Sophie said, opening the curtains to reveal the nighttime view of the city. Seoul sparkled like a giant electronic circuit board. "It's amazing. But you know what's even more amazing?" "What?" "That we're here together, building our own empire." At their first meeting in Seoul, Sophie was fascinated watching Ethan in action. He had learned Korean business protocol, practiced proper bows, and even tried a few Korean phrases Sophie had taught him. "Ethan Carter Bennett," he introduced himself, using the hyphenated name they had chosen for business purposes. "And I'm Sophie Carter Bennett," she added, feeling a new kind of emotion as she said the name. The meetings were intense. The Korean market was unlike anything Sophie had experienced. More formal than Dubai, more tech-driven than Miami, with its own unique cultural nuances. But having Ethan by her side made all the difference. Where she excelled at cultural sensitivity, he was strong in business strategy. Together, they created a synergy that impressed even the famously demanding Korean executives. "Miss Sophie," said the CEO of the main company they were negotiating with, "your husband understands business, but you understand people. Together, you are a powerful team." After 3 weeks in Seoul, Khalid set up a video call to check on their progress. "Do you have the contracts?" "Yes," Sophie answered. "Is the initial project approved, with bonuses?" Ethan added. "And are the local partners satisfied?" "More than satisfied. They want to expand into 2 additional phases." Sophie finished. Khalid smiled on the screen. "Sounds like Carter Mansouri International officially begins tomorrow. Welcome aboard, partners." That night, back in their temporary apartment in Seoul, Sophie and Ethan celebrated with Korean champagne and a view of the city that had tested and approved their partnership. "We did it," she said, raising her glass. "We did it. And, honey?" "Yes?" "This is just the beginning." Wedding planning started in Seoul, continued in Dubai, paused in London, and finally took root in Miami. Sophie and Ethan had decided they wanted something intimate, yet meaningful, a reflection of the many cultures now part of their lives. "We want the Miami Botanical Garden," Sophie announced one morning over breakfast in their Seoul apartment. "Any special reason?" Ethan asked, spreading butter on the Korean bread they'd bought from the bakery around the corner. "It's where it all started, geographically. Miami was the starting point, and they have an international garden, damask roses, Japanese cherry trees, Cuban palms. It's like our life, all in one place. Perfect." In the months that followed, the planning turned into a complex dance of time zones and cultures. Sophie's mother wanted Latin traditions. Khalid insisted on sending decorators from Dubai. Ethan wanted classic American touches, but also hoped to honor all the places they had visited together. "Are we planning a wedding or a UN conference?" Sophie joked one evening, staring at the long lists of details on her laptop. "Why not both?" Ethan smiled, running his hand through her hair. "Our life is international. Why should our wedding be any different?" 3 months before the wedding, they moved back to Miami for good, to finish the final preparations. The house had changed again. Now, there was a second office for Sophie, a room just for fabric samples and wedding catalogs, and a wall covered with photos of places where they had worked together. Miss Bennett. Mr. Carter, the wedding planner, an experienced Colombian woman, arrived with more catalogs. "We need to decide on the floral decorations." "We have a few ideas," Sophie said, excited. She had spent weeks researching flowers that would represent each important culture in their lives. "We want damask roses to represent our time in Dubai, Japanese orchids for Seoul, hibiscus for Miami." And she took a deep breath. "Portuguese geraniums to honor Ethan's mother's side of the family." Ethan looked surprised. "How did you know about the Portuguese geraniums?" "Your mother told me. She said your grandmother always grew them, and you loved the smell when you were a kid." "I love you," he said simply, kissing her forehead. "I see romance with attention to detail." The planner smiled. "We'll get all of those flowers." 2 weeks before the wedding, Khalid arrived in Miami a week earlier than planned. "I need to talk to you both about something important," he said during dinner at their home. Sophie and Ethan exchanged worried looks. "Khalid, if this is about the Tokyo contract," Ethan began. "It's not about work," Khalid interrupted. "It's about you two." "Us?" Sophie asked. "Yes. I've been watching you over the last few months. The way you work together, the way you respect each other, how you combine your unique talents to create something greater than the sum of its parts." He paused to take a sip of wine. "I want to propose something. A full joint venture. Not just you two working for me, but a real partnership. Carter Mansouri Bennett International, with the three of us as equal partners." Sophie almost dropped her wine glass. "Khalid, it's well-deserved," Ethan said, though there was a note of caution in his voice. "But why now? Why not after the wedding? Because I want you to go into your marriage knowing you have a solid future, both personally and professionally. And because," Khalid hesitated, "because I see you as family. This offer isn't just business. It's recognition." Sophie started to cry. "Khalid, we don't answer now? Think about it. But know this, no matter your decision, you'll always have a partner in me." That night, Sophie and Ethan stayed up late talking. "It's an amazing offer," Sophie said, snuggled against Ethan's chest. "It's more than amazing. It's a dream. But I want to make sure I'm not taking you away from your own dreams. I know Khalid has offered you roles that give you more creative freedom." Sophie turned to look at him. "Ethan, my dreams have changed. I used to want to prove something, to show I could do it. Now, I want to build something with you. Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "Then I think we have an answer for Khalid." "Do we, Sophie Bennett, soon to be Sophie Carter, and future business partner? Will you build an empire with me?" "I will, but only if you promise never to forget where we came from." "How could I? It's our favorite story." On the morning of the wedding, Sophie woke up in her old apartment, a tradition they had insisted on keeping. Her mom, her bridesmaids, and even a few friends from Dubai had stayed over, turning the small apartment into an international slumber party. "Nervous?" her mom asked as she helped with makeup. "No, I'm sure. Even with everything that's changing the new company, the constant travel, this whole international life." Sophie looked in the mirror, seeing not just herself, but bits of every woman who had shaped her. Her mom, her language teachers, friends from around the world. "Mom, do you remember when Dad died, and I promised myself I'd learn every language in the world so we could still travel together? I remember. I didn't keep that promise. But I found something better. I found someone who wants to take all those trips with me." Across town, Ethan was nervous. His best friend had to remind him to breathe 3 times. "Man, you're more nervous than she is," his friend joked. "That's because today, it becomes real. It's not just dating, not just living together. It's forever." "And are you ready?" Ethan looked in the mirror, adjusting his tie for the 15th time. I was born ready. I just didn't know it until I met her. The botanical garden had been transformed. Flowers from 5 continents created a multicultural path leading to the altar. Guests from dozens of countries filled the white chairs. Ethan saw Sophie's co-workers, business partners, but most of all, chosen family from places that hadn't even been in their lives a year ago. When the music began, Ethan felt his hands get sweaty. Malik, Sophie's assistant in Dubai who had become a friend, was already holding the rings. Khalid, his best man, stood beside him with a proud smile. And then she appeared. Sophie walked down the aisle with her mother, but Ethan only had eyes for her. Her dress was simple, but with embroidered details. She had coordinated with artisans from different countries, gold thread from Dubai, pearls from Seoul, lace from Miami. It was Sophie in her essence, simple on the surface, yet infinitely detailed. When she reached the altar, her mother kissed her cheek and whispered something in Spanish. Sophie laughed, gave a soft thank you in Arabic to an emotional Khalid, and finally focused fully on Ethan. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi," he answered, voice trembling. "You look beautiful. You're crying." "I'm an emotional man." The officiant, a college friend of Ethan's who had become a minister, started the ceremony in English but included blessings in Arabic and Spanish that Sophie and Ethan had chosen together. When it was time for the personal vows, Ethan took a deep breath. "Sophie, a year and a half ago, you were a stranger cleaning my house." He began in Spanish, making her mother tear up. "Today, you are the one who gives meaning to every word I know in any language." He switched to English. "You taught me that love means truly seeing the person in front of you. I promise to always see you, in your successes, in your fears, and in your wild dreams of taking on the world." Finally, in Arabic, surprising everyone, "You are my home, my heart, my future." Sophie was crying now, but glowing with happiness. "How did you learn Arabic?" "I had an excellent teacher these past few months," he said with a wink. Sophie wiped her tears and began her vows. "Ethan, a year and a half ago, I answered your phone, scared I'd be fired for daring to pick it up." Gentle laughter from the guests. "Today, I answer your phone because we've built something together that's bigger than fear, bigger than cultural differences, bigger than any border." She took his hand. "You saw me when I felt invisible. You loved me before I believed I was worthy of love. And more importantly, you don't just accept my dreams, you insist on making them your own." In Spanish, to her mother, "I promise to love you the way Papa loved Mama, through changes, challenges, and all our adventures." And finally, in Arabic, to a now openly weeping Khalid, "Thank you for giving me the chance to find my love." "Now," the officiant said, "do you have gifts for each other?" Ethan nodded and took out an envelope. "Sophie, besides the ring, I have something else for you." "A passeport?" "I already have a passport, love." She laughed. "An honorary diplomatic passport. Khalid and some influential friends helped make it happen, so you can move more easily between countries for work." Sophie covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "Ethan, that's impossible." "Nothing's impossible for us." Sophie then brought out a small box. "I have something too. A watch." "I already have a watch." Ethan echoed her joke. "This one shows 4 time zones at once, so wherever we are, we'll always know what time it is where the other person is." Ethan kissed her before the officiant could say anything. "Sorry," he laughed. "No problem." The officiant smiled. "In fact, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride again." And so, with friends from different continents as witnesses, under the Miami sky in a garden that represented the whole world, Sophie and Ethan sealed their union not just as a couple but as life partners, dreamers, and builders of something bigger, a love that crossed all borders. 2 months after the wedding, Sophie and Ethan were on their delayed honeymoon in Bali, a destination that matched their philosophy. Why choose just one place when you can explore many? They had spent a week relaxing in Hawaii, then made a quick stop in Tokyo for a few meetings, and were now enjoying the beaches and temples of Indonesia before returning to reality. It was their first night at the private resort in Ubud when Ethan got an urgent call from the executive assistant they had hired in Miami. Hey, sorry to interrupt, but this is urgent. Lucas's voice came through the phone. Sophie lifted her head from the pillow, looking concerned. What's going on? Ethan asked, putting the call on speaker. Khalid is going through a crisis. The partners in Tokyo are threatening to pull out of the deal. Apparently, it's a cultural issue, and they need Sophie urgently. Sophie sat up immediately. What kind of cultural issue? Something about misinterpreting certain clauses. The Japanese side thinks it was intentional, but Khalid believes it was just a bad translation. It's a complete mess. Ethan looked at Sophie, seeing the same conflict in her eyes that he was feeling himself. When do they need us? She asked. Yesterday. The meeting is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Tokyo time. Sophie was already standing up. Is there a flight from Bali to Tokyo? Sophie, sweetheart. It's our honeymoon, Ethan said, holding her hand. Ethan, if we don't fix this, we lose the entire Asian project. Lucas, can you give us 5 minutes? Ethan asked. Of course. Ethan hung up and turned to Sophie. What do you want to do? What I need to do? Go to Tokyo. And the honeymoon? Sophie sat beside him on the bed. Love, how many couples get to have a honeymoon that could save a corporate empire? Are you serious? You want to turn our honeymoon into a business trip? I don't want to, but I need to. This is our company now, Ethan. Our reputation. Ethan stayed quiet for a moment, then laughed. You know what? You're right. We're building something different, aren't we? So why should our honeymoon be traditional? Sophie kissed him. Thank you for understanding. On one condition. What's that? The most romantic hotel in Tokyo, and 3 extra days of a real honeymoon after everything's resolved. I promise. 12 hours later, they were in Tokyo, exhausted but focused. The hotel Ethan had picked was the Ritz-Carlton, with a view of Mount Fuji, a touch of romance in the middle of corporate chaos. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, Khalid greeted them in the hotel lobby with a hug. I can't believe you came. We're a team, Sophie said simply. Tell us everything, Ethan said, pulling his tablet from his bag. The Japanese interpreted a clause about architectural flexibility as a lack of respect for local building standards. Our translator used a very casual phrase that, in formal Japanese business language, comes off as sloppy. Sophie sicht. Let me guess. He used the word for sloppiness instead of respectful adaptability. Khalid paused. How did you know? Sloppiness implies carelessness. Respectful adaptability shows we value their standards. It's a common mistake when cultural nuances are missed. Exactly. And now they want Mr. Sato to receive a personal apology. When's the meeting? Ethan asked. In 8 hours. Sophie looked at Ethan. I need to prepare, review all the contract clauses in Japanese, create a presentation to rebuild trust. And I'll reach out to some local partners, see if we can find a respected cultural intermediary to vouch for our good faith, Ethan said, already picking up his phone. Are you too sure about this? Khalid asked. It's your honeymoon. Sophie and Ethan looked at each other and smiled. Khalid, she said, this is our honeymoon, saving our company together, building something bigger than any one job, being real partners. Besides, Ethan added, Tokyo has its romantic charm. Didn't we already have a business meeting over dinner in Dubai on our honeymoon? Sophie laughed. That was surreal and wonderful. Then let's make Tokyo work too. For the next 8 hours, Sophie barely slept. She reviewed every line of the contract, prepared a detailed presentation about cultural respect and genuine intentions, and even practiced different levels of bowing that could express sincere apology without appearing submissive. Meanwhile, Ethan managed to contact 3 respected cultural intermediaries, including a corporate advisor who had experience with Japanese Middle Eastern mergers. Mr. Ethan is very skilled at networking, the advisor said over a quick coffee at 5 o'clock a.m. It's my superpower, Ethan smiled. My wife has the cultural superpower, and I have the people skills. At the meeting, Sophie was flawless. She wore a conservative yet elegant navy blue suit, had researched the background of each Japanese executive, and began with a deep but not overly dramatic bow. Mr. Sato, esteemed board members, she began in formal Japanese. I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to clarify the intentions behind our proposal. Over the next hour, she not only corrected the linguistic misunderstanding but also presented examples of past projects where flexibility had been seen as a way to honor local architecture, not to dismiss it. She showed examples from Dubai, where traditional elements were respectfully integrated into modern designs. Our vision, she said, switching to fluent English to include Khalid in the conversation, is to create spaces that honor both the past and the future, that respect traditions while embracing innovation. Mr. Sato, who had been serious throughout the meeting, finally nodded. Miss Carter-Bennett, your understanding of our culture restores our confidence. And Mr. Carter, he turned to Ethan, I appreciate your efforts in bringing respected mediators together. You show a level of commitment we haven't seen in a long time. Khalid nearly fell out of his chair with relief. The agreement was finalized with expanded clauses to ensure full cultural understanding. There is a tradition in our company, Mr. Sato said at the end. When misunderstandings are resolved and partnerships are strengthened, we host a ceremonial dinner. Please honor us with your presence tonight as our guests. It would be our pleasure, Sophie replied, using the most respectful tone she could. That evening, during a formal dinner at a traditional restaurant in Kyoto, which they traveled to by bullet train, Sophie and Ethan took part in a tea ceremony, a 20-course kaiseki meal, and even tried Japanese calligraphy with guidance. To true partners, Mr. Sato toasted with sake, who turned challenges into bridges. Later, on the train back to Tokyo, Sophie was exhausted but glowing. I think I liked the meeting better than the honeymoon in Bali. Really? Ethan, look at what we did today. We saved an international deal, learned a new culture deeply, and still had a unique romantic night. She leaned into him. This is our life. It's not conventional, not predictable, but it's ours. And are you happy? I've never been this happy. And you, Sophie? Every day with you is an adventure, and I wouldn't want it any other way. During the next 3 days in Tokyo, they finally had time to themselves. They visited temples early in the morning, shopped at the Tokyo fish market, and had dinner at small izakayas, where Sophie chatted with elderly locals in Japanese and translated their stories for Ethan. You know we're incapable of taking normal vacations, right? Ethan said one morning over coffee at a tiny organic cafe Sophie had found after reading a full sign in Japanese. Of course, normal is overrated. Can we agree on one rule? Depends on the rule. 1 weekend a month, just the two of us. No phones, no meetings, no corporate emergencies. Sophie reached out her hand. Deal, but with one addition. What's that? Once a year we invent a corporate emergency in some romantic place, just to mix work with romance on purpose. Ethan laughed and shook her hand. Now that's perfect. You're brilliant. I'm yours. And I'm yours. And so, with an unconventional honeymoon protocol in place, they flew back to Miami 3 days later, knowing they had built not just a marriage, but a partnership model that blended love and ambition in a way that truly worked for them. 2 years after the wedding, Sophie was in her new home office, a space that had been expanded to fit 2 Scandinavian-style cribs. The twins, Lila and Amir, were sleeping peacefully as she joined a video call with investors from Zurich. So, Mrs. Carter, our quarterly analysis projects a 34% growth if we expand first into South America, the Swiss executive said. Sophie took notes as Lila started to fuss. Without hesitation, she picked up the baby with one arm, continuing the meeting as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Yes, I understand your projections, but we need to consider political nuances in Venezuela and currency instability in Argentina, she said, while gently rocking Lila. Ethan appeared in the doorway, Amir in his arms, holding 2 cups of coffee. Can you hand me the pink pacifier? She whispered. Ethan passed her the pacifier and kissed her forehead. How's the meeting? Productive. They want to expand into South America. And do you? We need to talk after the little ones are asleep. Sophie returned to the call. Sorry for the interruption. Where were we? We were just saying how impressed we are. It's rare to see a professional balance family and business with such grace. Thank you. At Carter Mansouri Bennett, We believe the best decisions come when we honor every part of our lives. After the meeting, Ethan was in the kitchen preparing bottles. The Swiss want South America. You? I got 3 proposals to expand my financial tech into Europe. They looked at each other. Have we been too ambitious? Sophie asked. Sophie, remember when we said we wanted it all: career, family, travel, global impact? And we're having it all? So, the real question is, do we still want to grow? Sophie fed Amir thoughtfully. You know what the best part of the past year has been? Working with you. Traveling with the babies for meetings. Showing our kids that ambition and love can go hand in hand. With conditions? What kind? First, we invest in a private jet. It's practical for traveling with babies. Second, we hire a cultural assistant in each region, someone who knows how to create baby-friendly meeting spaces. Third, we stick to our rule of 1 weekend a month, just for family. Sophie, yes. I love you more since we became parents. Why? Because I watch you handle phone calls in 3 languages while making baby food. You close million-dollar deals while Lila pees on your lap. And I love you more because you never make me choose between career and family. Ethan, can I admit something? Always. Sometimes, I feel like we're just too lucky. Ethan pulled her into his arms. Love, you saved my company, speak 6 languages, negotiate with sheikhs in the morning, and sing lullabies in Japanese at night. You deserve every success. And you had the courage to see more than just an employee. You saw a partner. Ethan, yes, let's expand into South America and Europe, and let's change how international business works for people with young kids. Yes, ma'am, CEO. A month later, Sophie was in Sao Paulo, pitching to Brazilian investors. Lila was in a stroller with Amir, and a multilingual au pair was nearby. Our family-focused approach doesn't make us less efficient. On the contrary, it shows full versatility. The Brazilians were impressed. It's refreshing to see a company that understands professionals have families, and that successful business can include real life. After the meeting, Sophie video called Ethan in Amsterdam. How did it go? Perfect. How about you? It's a done deal. The Dutch loved our life-work integration idea. We're creating a movement. We're building a global family. 6 months later, Carter Mansouri Bennett International had become a Harvard case study, not just for rapid growth, but for their groundbreaking approach. Mrs. Carter. Forbes wants to do a cover story on you too. Can they wait until I finish cleaning baby vomit off my Armani blouse? On the day of the photo shoot, Lila wore a tiny pink suit. Amir, a navy one. Say global takeover, the photographer said. World conquest, everyone shouted, while the babies babbled in delight. The article highlighted not just their financial success, but the shift in mindset they represented. Sophie, we're changing the world, Ethan said one night in Dubai. We're living our truth, and the world is learning there are many ways to love, work, and grow. Do you still think about that phone call? Always. It was the first time I used my voice for something bigger. And look where we are now. 3 months later, Sophie stood in Vancouver for her TED Talk. Ethan sat in the front row with the kids. 3 years ago, I was an invisible cleaner. A phone rang. I answered. And that simple act changed corporate paradigms. For 20 minutes, she shared her journey as a case study in visibility, cultural appreciation, and family-work integration. The issue isn't work-life balance, it's work-life integration. The applause was deafening. Mommy did great, Lila shouted. Mommy was amazing, Amir added. Later, a young woman from Beirut approached. Mrs. Carter, I speak 4 languages but work in a call center because they say I don't look right for international business. Sophie took her hand. Stop letting others decide what looking right means. Here's my card. Our company is always looking for multilingual talent. And if I can give you one piece of advice, answer every phone call. You never know which one will change your life. That night, while singing the babies to sleep, Ethan asked, Can we have a third? Seriously, he added. I think we're getting pretty good at raising world changers who respect cultures. Ethan Carter, are you proposing we expand our family business? Sounds perfect to me. And so, in Vancouver, with 2 sleeping babies and plans on the table, Sophie and Ethan celebrated not the end of a journey but the beginning of countless others. Some people go through life being seen but never truly known, Sophie whispered. And we've learned that true love sees potential before results. And real partnerships multiply dreams instead of dividing time. I love you, Ethan Carter. I love you, Sophie Carter. And I love what we've built together.